Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So welcome to our class on realizing God. This is Swami Prabhavananda's collection of talks, edited together by his disciple Nalini, Edith Tipple. And we're in the talk, Mind and Its Control. And we've come to a discussion of just what the mind is and what is it that's behind the mind. So the Swami says, I am talking to you, you are listening to me. What power is that? Brahman. He is present in the wink of the eye, in the lightning, he is present in the wink of the eye, in lightning, in air, in and through every nook and corner of the universe. So, which is, of course, is just a very eloquent way of saying that the divine presence is omnipresent. It is everywhere. Please understand this one truth. As long as you feel God is way up in the sky, you have not begun your spiritual life. Only when you begin to feel that He is within, that He is the soul of your soul, does spiritual life begin. Because of the restless nature of the mind, we cannot grasp that He is within. So how can we meditate? Notice the words, the restless nature of the mind. We must not think that there's something wrong, that our mind is restless. No, it is made that way. Furthermore, we as the divine being, we are the divine being that created time, space, and causation the way it is. And one of the things that we created is this outward directed mind. And so the fact that the mind is restless is not a problem. It's something just to be dealt with. So as long as we're in the grip of that restless mind, we cannot grasp that the divine is within. So how can we meditate? Now let us try to understand the nature of the mind. The whole universe of mind and matter is composed of three gunas, which can be said to be bundles of energy, which express themselves in different ways. Bundles of energy, bundles of vibration. When sattva predominates, the mind becomes intelligent, keen, pure, and tranquil. Another type of energy, rajas, expresses itself as restlessness, passion, activity. This energy may be for higher things or may lead you downward. It is the same energy. Then again, there is tamas, which is lethargy, laziness. The mind is made up of these three energies, yet each mind is different according to the predominance of one or other of these energies. And this is what we've been discussing for the last 2 Sundays. And we'll continue that discussion tomorrow in the talk, Who Acts, Who Experiences? These gunas, Sri Krishna tells us, and it is an accepted fact throughout the ways of seeing called the darshanas of Sanatana Dharma, the perennial philosophy, which is the accurate name of the spiritual traditions of India. It is accepted among them all that the gunas are there and that they make up what acts, but not what experiences what acts. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. The mind is made up of these three energies, yet each mind is different, in fact, unique, according to the predominance of one or the other of these energies. And your mind may change during any given day. You may experience the mood of sattva, and then something happens and it engages your passion, and you get active. And then later on in the day, because you've been busy and passionate, you become tired and lethargic. So your moods may change during the day. But over time, you will see that your mind has a predominant mode. And this is what is to be dealt with by one of the 4 yogas. It is these 4 yogas that are adapted in their principles and practices to deal with the predominance of the guna, whatever guna is predominant in your mind. Before we go on, is any of that unclear? Is there any question you'd like to ask about it? Or is there anything you'd like to add from your own experience about the nature of the mind, the gunas, and so on?
Kind sir, if permitted, I might also speak on behalf of the gunas, which is called tamas, which often gets, a really bad sort of rap in that it's lethargic and things. But the seed resting beneath the ground needs this tamas energy in order to manifest itself. And also, so I know it's a natural tendency to kind of look down on that one, but also remember that there is a needed balance for these in our lives. And maybe even perhaps the restfulness in which we meditate can be seen as a sort of an energy that's settled in a tamastic way. Perhaps this is.
Well, it's good to see tamas positively, you're right. But it's best to see it in this way. There is no lever without a fulcrum. That inertia, that steadiness, that is tamas, is required for there to be a lever. The lever is, of course, represents rajas. But our meditative state of mind, our meditative state of mind, our higher awareness, we would normally associate with sattva. It's a kind of dullness of mind that we associate with tamas. A kind of so you're absolutely right in saying that we should not look down on or look down on or be averse to any of these energies. They're all three necessary. But for spiritual progress, we need to emphasize the higher forms of rajas, replacing one lower form of activity with a higher form of activity, and with sattva, a higher form of intelligence with a lower form of intelligence.
Kind sir, as we sleep at night, as we will sleep, is this perhaps a form of tamastic, exercise or energy in which we are refreshed? Maybe you could answer something with that.
There is tamas in sleep, yes, but there is also, we enter a different realm when we sleep. We enter the second and third worlds. The second world may be quite rajasic. We may have a dream that is quite rajasic, even a nightmare that we wake up and we're panting. A tiger was chasing us, something, whatever the nightmare is. Or it may be a very tranquil dream, a spiritual dream. Then there is the third state of consciousness that we enter during sleep, and that is the latent subconscious, or some kinds often called the unconscious state. Now we know that activity continues there. Those people who study sleep say there are still waves within the nervous system, within the neurons, and throughout the nervous system, pervading the body. That state is associated with sattva, and then that which is beyond the three gunas. So we will experience all three states in dreaming and dreamless sleep, and the simple act of going to sleep. But yes, tamas is present there. Always. There is no such thing as something that exists within time, space, and causation, something that we can experience that doesn't contain all three gunas. And this is what Sankhya philosophy is all about. Sankhya philosophy, the Sankhya, most particularly translated, means enumeration. And it enumerates that fraction of tamas, rajas, and sattva that is present in everything. In this, it will remind you, if you're of a scientific frame of mind, it will remind you of the periodic table of chemistry. So much of this, so much of that, so much of the other thing yields this. Well, it seems to be an earlier form of that kind of thinking. So yes, there is tamas, rajas, and sattva in some amount in everything within time, space, and causation, which is by definition everything that we can experience. Thank you for bringing that out. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
This means that we have to work hard so that tamas and rajas won't take over our sattvas.
Well, it's interesting, Haima.
Uh-huh.
We have a choice of working hard or surrendering.
Surrendering. Yes, that might be a good word.
Well, so that if we practice Raja Yoga,
Mhm.
which as we know, as defined by Patanjali, is a complex system of the first 6 limbs involve self-effort. And so if we do that, then there will be hard work and there will be much achievement, some of it spiritual, some of it psychic, some of it intellectual. So there's hard work there.
Yes.
But if we are practicing bhakti, there's a period of some work, ritual, worship, and so on. But then what happens is you come to a place of surrender. And the same thing is true of karma yoga. What Krishna says in chapters 3 and 4 of the Gita, and then further along in chapter 8 on the gunas and chapter 13 on the field and its knower, he says, surrender everything to me, offer it all to me, do everything sacramentally. Now that's an effort, it's still self-effort. But as Christ said, that burden is light. Jnana Yoga or Advaita, for a sufficiently powerful mind, is not hard work, it's just constant work. It's unrelenting insistence on the truth.
I agree with that.
Brahman alone exists. Brahman alone exists. Neti to everything else, Brahman alone exists. So it's not so much hard work as it is unrelenting work. And it's very nicely described in the later chapters of Adi Shankaracharya's Vivekachudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. It's a continuous work, continuous going. Exactly. That's right.
The easiest path for us, and particularly in this time, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is bhakti.
Yes.
Bhakti contains very little tamas, though you can practice tamasic bhakti. But as taught by Sri Ramakrishna, by and large, it contains very little tamas and a great deal of sattva, and so is transformative in that way.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anything else from anyone? This is good. This is exactly what we should be doing.
Yes, I'd like to jump in here.
Yes, Robert.
The mind is only giving us back what it has gotten from us.
Exactly.
Because the mind has the only thing that the mind knows is what it has learned from us and from our experience.
Yes.
And so it's feeding it back to us. We may have forgotten it, but it was some experience or some situation that occurred in our lifespan many times way back, even back to childhood.
And according to Sanatana Dharma, perhaps even in prior lifetimes.
Yeah, even further, yeah. Okay, I got that. Yes, so that would include the 3 gunas. So it's not, but we have control over it, ultimately.
Yes, we certainly do. That's what the Swami is talking about. Absolutely.
Yeah, ultimately we have control, and we can allow it to lead us or influence us, but we don't have to do that.
Yes, as Vivekananda says, you are not the slave of matter. The mind is matter. Never were, never will be.
Right.
You are the master of that. Assert your mastery. And it's a matter of, as you said, oh yes, I learned all this, which I now create my universe of name and form, because each of our universes is unique, because each of us is unique. And if we transcend that, then our universe disappears. Everybody else's doesn't, but our universe disappears. And we go into a state called Turiya, above the three gunas, the fourth. But, most of us are from day to day are muddling along with the results of the mind that we brought to that morning and the three gunas' effect on that mind during the day. And well and good, we do this because we like it.
Yeah.
When we're tired of it, then we have the option of signing off and heading for home.
Yes.
Which is what the Swami is about to talk about.
Well, I just wanted to inject that concept into this conversation, and I appreciate what Jerry said earlier.
Yes,
It kind of the trigger for that, because we kind of seem to place priorities in the wrong areas sometimes.
Oh, amen, brother. Well, that is the nature of our ignorance, is to misprioritize, as the Swami said, misread this world. Anything else from anyone? All right. Back to what the Swami said. The mind is described as being like a monkey, restless, jumping from one branch to another. But that is not enough. The monkey gets drunk, intoxicated by the variety of life, by the vanity of life, intoxicated by the vanity of life, by pride, by ego, and then is stung by the bee of attachment. What use is there then in talking about control or religion or God? And of course, we all know that state of mind where the mind is like a monkey, drunk on itself, and stung by the bee of attachment. We're so convinced that we're right and others are wrong. We're so pleased to run after the things that we find pleasurable and consciously and actively avoid the things that we find painful. Well, all that's well and good, but it's simply, in the final analysis, will just earn us, according to what the teachers tell us. What will it earn us? It will simply earn us a time away from here where we enjoy the fruits of our merits, and then a return to human form where we get another chance to get it right. So why are there, back to what the Swami says, why are there different types? Why does an individual go through different moods? Who is responsible for what we are? Being good or bad, or a mixture of good or bad, depends on character. What you are, your growth, your evolution, the mind you have, is your own making. You think a thought, any kind of thought, good or bad, pure or impure, holy or passionate, and the next minute that thought has left you. But the thought has created an impression in your mind. You do a certain deed, and the deed creates an impression in your mind. Just consider, in this whole life, you have done so many deeds, you have thought so many kinds of thoughts. All the impressions remain in your mind, and the sum total of those impressions is your character. I have often given you the illustration of a river flowing in two currents. The surface current and the undercurrent flow in opposite directions. In the same way, in us, there are two wills. The will to live and enjoy life can be completely wiped out, but nobody can get rid of the will to inner check, the will to liberation. It may remain in abeyance, but it will assert itself, though perhaps not in this life. But I think we can say, for everyone who's here this morning, that in one way or another, this desire for freedom, this desire for happiness, this desire for liberation has asserted itself. Otherwise, why would you spend your time this way? So many other things that you could do. Sri Krishna's teaching to Arjuna on the ideal of controlling the mind is very interesting. The disciple frankly says to the teacher, restless man's mind is, so strongly shaken in the grip of the senses, gross and grown hard with stubborn desire for what is worldly. How shall I gain it? Truly, I think the wind is no wilder. How shall I gain control of the mind? Sri Krishna beautifully points out how to do it. Yes, Arjuna, the mind is restless, no doubt, and hard to subdue, but can be brought under control by constant practice and by the exercise of dispassion. And that's what Haima was talking about when she said hard work, constant practice. It's not a matter of doing it today and then forgetting it till next Saturday. No. If you wish to control the mind, you have to be working at it every day. Ultimately, you learn to work at it every moment, but it doesn't feel like striving. It feels like observing and properly acting in response to what you observe, not reacting, but acting. And so but as Krishna says, it can be brought under control by constant practice and by the exercise of dispassion. What is dispassion? Well, it's what I said. Here's a little poem. Being, creating, doing, sharing. The joy of these is why we're here. When you're truly tired of this, then sign off. and head for home. That signing off, that acknowledging that I am truly tired of this. It's not like it was bad and wrong to be, to create, to do, to share. There's joy in those things. Otherwise, why would we do them? There's also suffering. At some point, we grow weary. So when you're truly tired of this, then sign off and head for home. And the signing off is this dispassion. I just don't want that anymore. So then you begin to find your way to the path home. And so many teachers are there. So many different ways of looking at it are there, that you can find something that suits your uniqueness long enough for you to become skilled at the practice of those practices and principles. And then your inner being becomes your guide all by itself. So that's what's meant by constant practice and the exercise of dispassion. Certainly, if a man has no control over his ego, he will find this yoga difficult to master. But a self-controlled man can master it if he struggles hard and uses the right means. And Krishna says, late in the Gita, he says, well, yes, this, in the beginning, this is sour toil. It is hard work. It is, your habits so try to persuade you that you should continue doing as you've done. And there's every reason for your mind to insist that, no, leave me alone. I've brought you this far, didn't I? Yeah, but I'm tired of it. So I don't want it anymore. And so then we begin to work, do the struggles, and find the right means. Before we go any further, are there any comments or questions about what has been said by the Swami or from here?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please, Somesh.
Yes. So you said we are here to being, create, doing, and sharing.
That's a summary, yeah.
Yeah. And see, once you realize, but these things still continue, right? You're still being something or someone. You're being
As
like
long as you're embodied, yes.
Yes. Okay. So you're still doing same things. It's just that you're doing as a realized person, that your mind is making you being something. Is that what
No, a realized person, it's very hard to speak about a realized person, Somesh.
Okay.
All of us are spiritual aspirants.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about what spiritual aspirants do. A realized person, they're very unpredictable. They're no longer imprisoned. They no longer are. They have achieved that state of Turiya, the fourth, above the three gunas, above time, space, and causation.
Mm-hmm.
So just what they will be and do is hard to say. But we can talk about what we as spiritual aspirants do. We as long as we're embodied, we'll continue to be part of that being, creating, doing, and sharing. But we may no longer take the joy in it that we did before. That's what's meant by dispassion. We may not find it as compelling as we did. So that's what's meant by the rest of that little poem. When you are truly tired of this, then sign off and head for home.
Mm-hmm.
And one way or another, I would venture to say that each of us has that feeling, that this being, creating, doing, and sharing, yes, I acknowledge its joys. I also acknowledge its capacity for suffering. But take it all in sum, I'm just tired of doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. And
By the
so
choice.
then you find a way to head for home. And so what a realized soul will do, Sri Ramakrishna says, they're completely unpredictable.
Okay.
They may act like a child. They may act like a madman. They may act like a ghoul. They may act like the most sane person in the world. I mean, Swami Vivekananda experienced both of those things with Sri Ramakrishna within 30 minutes. Sri Ramakrishna seemed to him like an utter madman. But just a few minutes before that happened, and then just a few minutes afterwards, he was experiencing him in talking to the other devotees, the other people who had come, as the most sane and balanced human being. So, very hard for us to characterize realized people.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the talks of Swami Yogatmananda. Listen to the talks of Swami Sridharananda. These are two that from here, they seem to me to be recognizably realized souls. There are others. There are many others. I'm sure that aren't recognizable to me. But those are two whose talks you can listen to online. And you get some sense.
Can you give the names once more?
Swami Yogatmananda.
Mm-hmm.
Swami Yogatmananda is the head of the Ramakrishna, of the Vedanta Society of Providence, Rhode Island. Of course, he's a Ramakrishna order monk. Swami Sridharananda, Sridharananda, Sridharananda. Swami Sridharananda heads the work. He's in his 90s now. He heads the work in Australia and New Zealand. And, you can find his work online also.
Okay.
So those are two people that you can look at and say, this is how a realized soul speaks. And that's the opinion from here. It's not received truth. It's just the opinion from here.
I got it. I got your communication.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet, Somesh. So good you asked the question. Anything else from anyone?
Hari Om, Shankaraji.
Well, Balakrishna, so good to hear from you.
I really love Sridharananda. It is love. He's an embodiment of love.
Yes.
I spent almost like one day in Australia, and I cannot, forget him and his love. At about 10 or 10:30, he didn't want me to go alone to the train station, even though the driver was ready to take it. He came with me And he stayed in the station until I got into the train. It is, I mean, such a loving and beautiful Swami.
Yes, indeed. Just to let you know about what Balakrishna just said. You know, I had been singing Swami Sridharananda's praises to Balakrishna for some time. And Balakrishna went with a group of people to Australia, but he broke away from the group to go and see for himself what it was that I was talking about this Swami. And you heard his own testimony just now. He is indeed an embodiment of love. But what does that mean, to be an embodiment of love? This is an embodiment of Satchidananda. This is, he has become that. That's how it seems. Thank you, Balaji. Thank you. Anything else from anyone? I once sat with Swami Yogatmananda, not by myself. I was part of this big workshop in Rochester, New York. I sat with him for 6 days as he expounded the Katha Upanishad. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome how clearly and how fully he explained the meaning of that wonderful Upanishad. And it occurred to me at the time, only someone who truly knows what he's speaking about, really knows whereof he speaks, could speak in this way. Anything else, dears?
I just searched. I think now he's heading Vedanta Society of North Carolina.
Who's that? Who?
Swami Yogatmananda.
No. No, there is no Vedanta Society of North Carolina. He may have visited there, but he is in Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay, I went on the site vedantanc.org and it says Swami Yogatmananda.
Well, there is no
maybe-
Vedanta Society in North Carolina. There's a small group in Raleigh, Durham, and he may have visited there. But
Okay.
Swami Yogatmananda, Yogatmananda,
Yes.
Yogatmananda.
Yes.
He's the head of the Vedanta Society of Providence, Rhode Island.
Mhm.
There's been no change there. That I can say for sure. I heard from him recently.
Yes, actually, yeah, below it, it's written Swami Yogatmananda is the head Hindu religious affiliate at the Brown University, Providence, Rhode Island, and the Hindu chaplain at
Yes.
the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, anything else at all? Okay, back to Swami Prabhavananda's words. People tell us to be good, but you can't suddenly become transformed just by emotions. You have to take the right steps. In other words, you have to follow spiritual disciplines. First, you have to have discrimination to find peace. In God alone, you find peace. First, you have to have discrimination to find peace. You want to find peace. Then you must have the desire to succeed. Discriminate between the real treasure, and glass beads. And then long for liberation. So those are the steps. I'll repeat that. People tell us to be good, but you can't suddenly become transformed just by emotions. You have to take the right steps. In other words, you have to follow spiritual disciplines. First, you have to have discrimination to find peace. In God alone, you find peace. The discrimination is that you make this decision. I'm not going to find peace. I'm not going to find happiness in the world as such, in my normal experience of the world. In God alone, I'll find peace. Then you must have the desire to succeed. Swami Swahananda used to call this zeal. The Sanskrit word is mumukshutvam. You have to have this burning desire. I'm not going to be trapped here anymore. I'm going to get out of here. This burning desire to succeed. Discriminate between the real treasure and glass beads, and then long for liberation. You have to learn to concentrate in order to think of God. He is right within you. Turn your gaze inward. Distractions arise. You can expect your mind. You can't expect your mind to be concentrated and absorbed in God immediately, but patiently try to free yourself from distractions through regular practice. Now, what does this mean? We must not ever get impatient with ourselves. It's the nature of the mind to be distracted. So as we are attempting to practice concentration, whatever it is, on a particular thought or group of thoughts, as is suggested in Patanjali, or on some image or mantra, as is suggested by Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, the mind will naturally wander away to its distractions. We gently return it. We gently pull it back to what we intended to do. And we do this again and again and again and again until we get good at it. It's precisely, and this is what Vivekananda says, education is nothing more than the training of the nerves. That education is nothing more than the training of the nerves. If you wish to learn to serve a tennis ball so that you can control where that ball goes when it gets to the other side of the net and hit that 4-inch by 4-inch square little space that you intend it to go in. And not only that, but when it hits in that space, it will bounce one way this way, one time this way, and then because you strike the ball differently into that same 4 by 4-inch space, the next time it will bounce directly toward your opponent. And the next time you do it, it will bounce to the right instead of the left. Is this something that can be done? You can see the great tennis players do it. How? Relentless practice. Relentless practice. And yet they can do exactly that. And not only that, they can move that 4-inch by 4-inch space that they're hitting the ball into. They can move it from this side of the place where the opponent is standing to that side forward. It's astounding to watch them, what they can do. You are just as capable of doing that astounding thing with your mind. but you have to be willing to put in the practice. And it means doing it every day, every day, every day for years, just like those tennis champions. Patiently try to free yourself from distractions through regular practice. In inspired talks, Swami Vivekananda says, an impatient person can never have religion. Impatience is just another kind of distraction. If you get impatient and angry with yourself or with the world or anything else, it's just self-defeating and a waste of time. It's understandable and it will happen to every one of us. But at a certain point, it just becomes a little comical. And then the Swami says, finally, after having gained some control of the mind, finally practice surrendering the fruits of your actions to God every day. And that too requires concentration of your mind. For you to say, dearly beloved, this day and all it contains is offered to you. And then you go through the list of what it is that you're offering. Finally, practice surrendering the fruits of your actions to God every day. These are the regular universal practices. Everyone must practice these virtues to grow spiritually. You have to come to the understanding, if I do not find God, what else is there to find? You have to think, I have no other refuge but God. And that's the conclusion you reach when you are truly weary of the doing, creating, of the being, creating, doing, and sharing. As I said, nothing wrong with being, doing, being, creating, doing, and sharing. But you will not find peace, you will not find happiness that lasts. You will not find spiritual treasure there until you have learned these other things. Then you return to the being, creating, doing, and sharing, and see the divinity within each person who is being, creating, doing, and sharing with you. And so that too becomes transformed. This is what Sri Ramakrishna calls vijnana. You have to think, I have no other refuge but God. The nature of this world is dualism, pleasure and pain, life and death, and rebirth. In school, I read a study about a king. I read a story about a king who became old and practiced austerity to regain his youth. He was told that he could have his youth back if one of his sons would take on his age and give up his own youth. One of his sons took on his father's old age, and the king became a young man again. He married 100 wives, and then at long last he understood that by satisfying cravings, desires are not satisfied. At long last, he understood that by satisfying cravings, desires are not satisfied. Why? Because the cravings are something of the senses. The desire is something of the mind. In the same way, when you pour butter into a fire, in the same way, when you pour butter into the fire, it flares up. More and more. It flares up more and more. But if we can control the mind, we can control the world. Now, that doesn't mean you become dictator of the world. It's not what it means. It means the world no longer has control of you. You are master of the game of life, not life mastering you. That's what he means. It is the experience of those who have attained any spiritual illumination that this world disappears. It reappears as you come back to your ordinary consciousness. But during the time that you are in that supersensuous state, the world disappears. It is the mind that deludes and that binds with the bonds of the body, the sense organs, and the life breath. It makes one It makes one wander endlessly among the infinite actions it has caused. So any final thoughts or questions? It's 11:58. Let's take time for any final thoughts and questions.
I have one thought, Brother Shankara. When you said we will not be controlled by the world, that means we will be passers-by, like Jesus says.
Exactly.
Christ said.
We won't be, Jesus' shortest teachings,
Yes.
one of the Logians in the Gospel of Thomas, is be passers-by.
Exactly. We will become them. Right?
And what does that mean? It means we won't get stuck.
Exactly. We won't take everything.
Because we stop at the roadside stand and take some food.
This move.
And we enjoy the food. That doesn't mean we're going to stay there and take every meal for the rest of our lives. We're going to pass on, no matter how good the food is. We'll pass on. Thank you, Haima. Yes, be passers-by. Anything else from anyone?
Let me say again, thank you. These words, brother, have been very encouraging to me. I am so happy, to join with you here, and also to learn, about this idea of gunas. It seems very, very, enlightening in many respects, and sort of understanding what's going on. And yes.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No. I was just only was also saying that it's very much true that we are, we have this experience of the oneness, right? And the Brahman, the God, right? And we know, and then our mind, though, is not what we are. It's this tool that we have. And each of us is kind of like we're the same deity, consciousness, like an arm of an octopus, like holding this marvelous tool, right? We're all the same octopus and then we're the same arm. But with that tool, we as consciousness experience the creation that we're creating too. And that's just so nifty to hear it explained so clearly. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Jai, 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 jai. Now, let me ask, where is it that you're speaking from?
Oh, as an individual, I'm here manifest in North Carolina. It is the middle of it, almost in Raleigh.
Well, it's so good to hear from you. And it's just nice that people find us from all these wonderful places. So come and see us again. You're so welcome.
I'm so looking forward to your talk tomorrow, actually. I saw that one there, and I'm like, oh, I better get in today just to hear, kind of how this goes, because, yes, maybe this is also exciting.
Well, thank you. And that's, you'll hear very much, Jerry, that we're doing this together, that this energy that is represented by all of these people on these screens, this is doing this together.
Yes.
We are studying the art of spirituality together. We're moving, as was once said to me, come, let us go forward together. And that's exactly what's intended here. And so, go ahead.
A wise teacher said, perhaps, that all of us, we are just leading each other home.
Oh,
We're all leading. And then we are home, though. See, we realize that. It's like, yay. We're leading ourselves where we already are.
Well, we are and we aren't, and that's why it's an adventure. We are and we aren't. And when this minute we are, the next minute somehow it eludes us. But nevertheless, we're only, as you pointed out, eluding ourselves, and somehow we intend that as the divine presence. Not one of these individuals here created this whole shebang. We did it together, and so until tomorrow, dears, if there's anything else from anyone. All right. Dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. Go forward in the divine being's loving and protective embrace. Until tomorrow, for those of you who decide to join us, Jai, Jai, Jai. So good to have seen you. So good to have been with you. And until next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until then.